Ow. Hi. I will start this video by saying that this video is brought to you by our sponsor, Jim. He's a great guy. Except if you're under 21. If you're under 21, don't get to know Jim because he's an asshole. Then after you're 21, he's an amazing guy who makes your Wednesday nights fairly interesting. Anyway, listen. I'm going to tell you about something I discovered, the fourth dimension. And I know it's one of those things that's weird and they're like, holy shit, is he really going to talk about the fourth dimension? And also, is he going to cuss? Yeah. I am the drunken philosopher. You can call me Viscera. This is my pipe. It is filled with tobacco, so don't get any ideas. Okay. The fourth dimension, the thing you have to understand, and I am an existentialist, and if you don't know what that means I don't think things are as simple as they appear. I think there are different realms of consciousness that apply to the things that we see. In other words, I think that the mind is actually capable and a thing. It can be attributed to many skills and abilities, and we don't always see what the truth is. And I believe in that other truth that you can't see. That is the existential truth. So, along those lines, let me explain to you that the existential idea of the fourth dimension relies on the simple idea that not all objects are tangible. It's crazy. But here's the thing with your senses. They are what makes up your idea of reality. You can see things, you can hear things, you can smell things, you can feel things, and those things become real. Those things become tangible. However, there are things that are not tangible. You can't see them. You can't hear them. You can't feel them. You can't taste them. You can't smell them, but you know they're there. Most importantly, these things are emotions. And here's where I go into talking about psychology, of which I just completed my Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, so I don't want you to think that I just read this on Wikipedia. The first thing that you should understand about perception and reality is that it's based off your accumulated five senses. You take those, you put them in a blender, and you pour them out and you drink them. And how you taste them relies upon your past, the lessons that you've learned. So let's say you see mint, you taste mint, and you put it in your mouth, and you say to yourself, hey, I've had mint before, therefore this must be mint. Mint becomes the reality. But it's not as simple as that, because not everything can be tasted, not everything can be seen, not everything can be blended. There are things that you have to trust within yourself, and this is where faith comes in. But I'm rambling. I digress. Not everything is tangible. The emotional environment is an amazing thing, and it's powerful, because imagine, take 5 seconds and imagine if you couldn't see anything, hear anything, smell anything, taste anything, and feel anything. If you could not feel, taste, if you had no senses whatsoever, would you cease to exist? No. I'm sure throughout the history of humanity there has been someone who couldn't hear, smell, taste, feel, nothing. Did they cease to exist? No. Did they cease to exist consciously? No. The outside world ceased to exist because they had no way of seeing it or smelling it or feeling it or making it a reality. So they had no sense of time. So the outside world ceased to exist, but they didn't cease to exist. I digress. So why is this important to the fourth dimension? Because you have to understand that humans are a fourth dimensional being. Humans are actually the only fourth dimensional beings on Earth. On Earth. And I'm not going to go into aliens because I don't know. But I'm just saying it's a possibility. The fourth dimension, and this is the point of this entire video, is to explain to you that the fourth dimension is significance. Significance. So I got some notes, so I'm going to make sure I'm on track so I don't just keep babbling, because, oh yeah, a word from our sponsor. Delicious. Okay, I will talk about the progression of dimensions. I made these notes before I was fucking drunk as... Drop my camera. That's okay. Alright, the progression of dimensions. Listen, here's how it works out. The first dimension is this. This is the fourth dimension. I'm not going to labor on too long about this because we all know it. The first dimension looks like this. Okay? It has a beginning, it has an end, and that's all you know about it, essentially, is that there's a point at which it begins and there's a point at which it ends. Therefore, it has the limitations of one dimension. The second dimension. The second dimension is the dimension of shape. This is a square. It has a dimension. You know that it, like the first dimension, you know that it begins and ends, but you understand that not only does it have a beginning and an end, not only is it logical, as in it has a beginning and the end, and it has a progression from one end to another. Not only is it logical, but it exists in your consciousness as a space. Alright, so that's the second dimension. The third dimension is this. The third dimension is perspective. The third dimension tells you that not only does this thing have a limit, it begins here and ends here, begins here and ends here. Not only does it have a shape, that it's a square, which is the second dimension, but it has perspective, which means that it is relevant to the world around it. It begins here, ends here, there's nothing in front of it, nothing behind it, nothing on top of it, nothing on the bottom of it, nothing to the left of it, nothing on the right of it. It has perspective. You can tell how far away it is and how big it is because of its relevance to the world around it. That's the third dimension. So, the fourth dimension, and this is where you really have to stay with me. The fourth dimension is the significance. And the problem with the word dimension is that we've been taught to understand that the word dimension means that it's a variable of physical space. Instead of using the word dimension, you can use the word property. This is the vital change in logic. Okay? So your first dimension is the beginning of logic, beginning to end. The fourth dimension is the relevance, the significance. Drop my camera again. The fourth dimension, word from our sponsor, the fourth dimension